Every single thing that you want is on the other side of high self-belief. The problem is that very few of us actually know what that really is or know how to build it.
And if you want to feel more confident, which I would wager you do, you have zero time to waste in building this skill. So join us today for that exactly.
Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. It's Amelia. For episode 479, we intend to have you jumping away from this episode, building everything, or at least having everything, the basics you really need for real self-belief. And this is a topic, Bianca, just before we got started recording, you had said we haven't done a topic on self-belief in a minute. And true or false, this has been something when people ask us, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? How do I have better mental health? How do I have better resilience? We talked about it in so many different arenas, but true or false, so many of the elements and the topics that we speak about, one of the underpinning skills in efforts to have what we talk about always comes down to, at some point or another, the good old self-belief. True or false?
The root of everything is self-belief.
Okay. Yeah. So why is that? And why does that matter if we don't have that root? Let's talk on that.
So, I was never someone who believed in myself. I never thought I was good at things. I never thought I was capable of things. I never thought that I could achieve things. And so I never tried. And we've talked about this in previous episodes about who you grow up around and how there's just so many fundamental principles that go into self-belief. We did an episode on the growth mindset and how that impacts trauma, and all of these concepts and all of these topics are really related. They all come down to how you see yourself and what you believe about yourself. And growing up as someone who just had very low self-belief due to all of those things that we dove into, I never really tried anything. I never put myself out there. I never made an effort to do anything difficult because my inherent belief was I'm not capable. And realistically, all I would ever really do is try the things that I knew with a higher degree of probability that I would succeed at. So basically do whatever's easy because I know that I can get that done. It wasn't until I met Amelia and we started this mission that my understanding of self-belief increased significantly. Even though I was studying it at school, lived experience is so much different than knowledge and book knowledge. So we start this mission. I'm starting to actually learn what it is because it's like, oh my Lanta, I'm being thrown in the deep end here. And I'm actually having to learn what it means to believe in yourself and what it means to build self-belief. Because my idea prior to meeting Amelia was you either have it or you don't. There's just those people out there who have it and they're confident and they're capable and whatever. And then there's me.
Yeah.
And I'm just part of the one who doesn't have it. So, Amelia, what actually is self-belief, and what did you know long before I did about it, and what most people know?
Yeah. So yesterday, before I closed up my quote unquote working block on a today it's a Monday. When I'm talking about this was a Sunday, and I had posted this reel collage, and I won't want to give this for context because I genuinely had such a moment that I put this in the copy. Very rarely do I stop to smell the roses of the garden that we're building here at Evolve. And I know we giggle at that, but it's so true. And I know you know what I mean by that because we have so much momentum. And as a team, we're doing such incredible work in this world, and we are doing what's never been done before. And Bianca's face says it all. And it is what we do and how we do it because of the mission that we have and the values that we have that always is challenging us and inviting us to be the most evolved version of ourselves. And I was looking back at some of the photos and just some of the years that we've been through, and just had so much freaking gratitude because Bianca, when I first asked you to join this journey, I couldn't even put into words what it was. I tried to in like a 10-minute invitation video, but I love what you said there on how the true self-belief is, it's through your own experience where you really start to understand this. You can read in the books about self-belief and what it is, and I can tell you this, but if you're never putting yourself in the arena, meaning like Bianca did, I invited her into the arena. I said, you're going to get beat the hell up. It's going to be tough. Like I tried to explain it, but you don't understand it until you're actually getting hooks to the jaw. You are getting gut punches day over day over day, and yet we rise. And that, Bianca, has been one of the things that I was so grateful for looking back at that. And I mean that so sincerely, is like you have continuously risen through every single one of those. And when I first met you, I didn't know you thought that way, right? We only learned some of that stuff over time. And so what is self-belief? Self-belief is this, it's like... Self-belief is inherent trust in yourself. That's the most basic way that I can put it. Now, if we want to talk about it clinically, right, it is the willingness to go take an action that builds self-trust. If we want to talk about it in a very similar vein, that's very common for most people and have a familiarization with it. This is what we refer to as like the self-confidence and self-esteem. And I'm going to put a digital asset and ask the production team to flash this up for anyone that's seeing this on YouTube, because this is what we refer to as the we tree. And Bianca, you're familiar with the asset. We use this with our clients, but at the end of the day, most people are growing up without any self-belief because they haven't had people in their corner to help them understand that they can become like those type of people. To what you said, it's not an on or off switch. I either have no self-belief or I have 100 self-belief, right? And it's a spectrum. But what is actual self-belief, like real, true, authentic self-belief? It is no matter where you are starting on that spectrum, you have the willingness, the mental modality, and ultimately the grit to move yourself through actual life experiences, to see what you are made of, to see what you are capable of, and to see ultimately through life experience, lived experience, that you're able to handle when life asks you to step up.
Mm-hmm.
So we can break down self-belief in a multitude of different ways. And as we continuously learn again and again through the work that we do at Evolve, some of the biggest barriers that inhibit people from actually building real self-belief, one of the biggest things that crops up is a lack of a realization of where you fall on the fixed or on the growth mindset end. And I know, Bianca, and I'm curious to hear, did you self-identify prior to meeting me, Alan? Did you self-identify as someone who had a fixed mindset? Like, was
I
that
didn't even
something
know
that
what
you
it
had self-awareness
was.
to?
I
Right.
didn't even know
Okay,
what it
great.
was.
Right.
But yes, I definitely had a fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, I absolutely did. My belief was that I am who I am, and I'm just going to be this way for the rest of my life.
Perfect. So did you have awareness to that belief in
No,
yourself?
I wanted to tell myself a story that I thought that I could get better. But the truth was, I didn't actually think I could get better.
I love that distinction. Okay. So that was self-awareness to your narrative, your story. So for anyone joining us in this episode, I want you to attune to what that story is for you. And Bianca, for you, when you learned where you actually were on the spectrum of hyper-fixed mindset to fixed mindset to growth mindset to hyper-growth mindset, what changed there? Specifically when it comes to your narrative, because that's step number one. If you want to build real self-belief, I deeply am convicted at this point. If you have zero awareness where you are on that spectrum and where you really are, not the story you want to tell yourself, but where you really are, where your actions, if I were to be a fly in the wall watching you and I could tune into your thoughts and the narratives that get created, that is the first determinant on what actually builds self-belief. Because if you have a story, then you're not actually going to build real self-belief. You're just going to attune to that story and shirk away from the action. So what happened when you first identified when you were on the spectrum of growth and fixed mindset and where you were actually at?
I wasn't surprised.
Okay.
It hurt, like, it was
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but I knew, like, in my heart, I knew I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think that I was capable of things.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so with that, and I appreciate you sharing. I didn't necessarily intend for you to be that example, but I really appreciate you sharing because I think
It's
it's
fine.
incredibly important because your levels of self-belief, although you wouldn't necessarily identify as them being super high, which I think is the paradox here and actually quite comical, but in comparison to other people who are starting where you first were, holy shit,
Yeah.
is it incredibly high. You have
Yeah, it is.
real self-belief, real self-trust that you can get outcomes that past version of Bianca had no concept of, right? And there's nuances in that.
So there's 2 types of self-belief that Amelia just alluded to. There's input and output. So input self-belief is I believe that I am capable of doing the necessary thing. Output self-belief is I believe that me doing those things is going to get me the outcome that I am looking for.
Beautiful.
So over the years, I've developed really, really, really high input self-belief, where if Amelia gives me a task, I believe that I can do it. But
Mhm.
where my issues with self-belief still lie, which I'm still working on, is my belief in my ability to identify a goal and then achieve that goal over time. So
Mhm.
there's two different aspects of it. So even back in the day, I had a little bit more of a belief in myself regarding input efficacy or
Mhm.
self-belief, but my output self-belief was insane. It was non-existent. And
Mhm.
over the years,
Mhm.
both of them have gotten much higher, and my input efficacy is a lot higher.
Okay. So in other words, I'm going to transcode this a little bit because you're definitely working on this such that it is breaking it down to an engineering and clinical science. And I love that. And to anyone that has seen Bianca's progression, hopefully you can really have that and take that as inspiration for you wherever you end up. Number one, finding yourself on the spectrum of growth to fixed mindset. Number two, you can realize that self belief can be broken down to a science of building self trust. And there's
Yeah.
two different components on that. And that's step number two. Do you have the identity that is allowed for you to engage upon the behaviors or engage with the behaviors that build an even bigger identity or build an even bigger bridge of self trust? If the answer is no, then that's actually really important for you to attune to. If the answer is yes, I'm willing to build more self trust within myself. That's when we start to break down. Okay, is it the inputs that you want to have higher levels of self belief with? So, for example, go to the gym. You have high belief that you can pick up a 20-pound dumbbell, or is it I really want to lose 10 pounds and I'm going to do that in 12 weeks. And the output, what you get, the goal that you reverse engineer, how much self-belief do you have in your ability to reverse engineer the exact science in order to meet that goal in that deadline? That's the difference. But most people don't even get to that second point because the first component of that, the identity component, is identifying as someone who has a growth mindset with fixed areas about one's own capabilities. And that's the shift number two that I want to encourage any evolver that's listening to this, someone who wants to actually build their self-belief. They really start to hone in on, once they identify themselves, where they are in the spectrum of growth mindset, is making sure that there's an identity that they're choosing in advance to help put them, for lack of better words, in the arena to build more self-belief. So for example, the difference between I go to the gym and I am an adult athlete. Your nervous system might reject that. And it might reject that because you've never gone to the gym. But if that identity, or I am someone who does yoga, I am a yoga. I am a yogi. The difference between that, one of them is going to encourage you to put yourself on the freaking mat and get in some real life experience for you to build self-belief and get that feedback loop cranking. And so choose an identity, one that's close to where your belief system is about yourself, that will encourage you to step into the ring and build the momentum towards this belief. And then the third thing is, I can't end this episode without actually speaking about this. Over time, when we actually try to build self-belief, we step into the arena, we go onto the mat, we try some Ashtanga, and we're like, Jesus, my knees. or we're trying strength training and we're like, holy shit, Amelia lifts that? How does she do it? It starts by recognizing, if you let yourself feel like shit about yourself in that one moment when you're comparing yourself to other people, that is not going to help you build more self-trust. It's not going to help you build more self-belief, because you're not stating to yourself, you're not proving to yourself, and then you're not self-assigning. Instead of figuring out what is off within the formula of self-belief that you have, right? Am I not picking up the right dumbbells? Am I doing a wrong pose? Is my footing off? Is my balance a little off? You instead self-identify you as the issue. And again, if you're on the fixed mindset, you never actually move from that. And so if you're just focused on your feelings rather than the formula, getting the formula right is going to be so much better and so much more efficacious when it comes to building self-belief. So get the formula right, be mindful of the feelings, focus on the identity that gets you in the ring, not just the inputs, and then make sure that you know where you are on the fixed or growth end of this spectrum of mindset. Bianca, what do you have in closing for this episode? I know I just went ham sandwich.
No, that was great. It's going to happen over time. You have to start small. You're going to question yourself. It just is what it is. We think that people with high self-belief never question themselves, and it's just not true. They just question themselves more intelligently.
Facts.
As someone who went from no self-belief to relatively high self-belief, it is possible. It's just, you have to be willing to embrace the suck of it a little bit.
Love the suck, love the growing pains, love the evolved journey. There is no such thing as self-belief without a little bit of pain and suffering. And I know you might be like, well, that sounds sadistic. It's like, nah, you just learn that pain and suffering and those challenges, that growing pains, the messy middle is your BFF when it comes to building self-belief. So embrace the suck, move towards it. Don't let fear eat you up. And my episode suggestion, if you like this episode, is 469, what the growth journey actually feels like to that end. So you can level set your expectations. Bianca?
Mine is 463, evolve habits that will change your life forever.
Ooh, okay, y'all. If you like this episode, we appreciate you. We're so grateful that you're joining us in this journey in learning about the holistic science of mental health and wellness. We care so deeply about this. We're so grateful that you're on this journey with us, and we cannot wait for you to evolve with us. So if you need someone in your corner, please reach out. The link to our social medias are in the bio. We love hearing from our listeners, and we hope that you have an awesome day.
Bye, everybody.